Gravity is the best place to buy and sell Bitcoin in the UK. And now it's time. Time to connect. Time to welcome Europe.
Bienvenidos a Gravity.
Benvenuto in Gravity.
Sveiki atvykę į Gravity.
Bem-vindos a Gravity.
Bine ați venit la Gravity.
Bienvenue à Gravity.
Welcome to Gravity.
Gravity. We're building the Bitcoin bank of the future today. Visit gravity.bitstocks.com now.
Hello and welcome people for another episode of the Bitstocks podcast. Of course, over here in the UK, it is on lockdown, and over in Norway, it is lockdown as well. So we've got none other than Stephan. Stephan is the CEO and founder over at UNISOT, so Stephan Nilsson. And many will remember you from your most recent CoinGeek presentation where you conquered the live demo gods and you done a live demo, which was awesome. I was rooting for you. I was like, please work. So Stephan, welcome to the Bitstocks podcast. How's things? There's so much going on in the world right now. I mean, how's things been since we last saw each other at CoinGeek?
Yeah, everything has been world-changing, like for everybody here. So you talked about lockdown and so on. Yeah, Norway is on lockdown, but I saw a nice picture the other day for a programmer. There was a picture of a programmer sitting at his table in the normal times, and then a picture when a programmer is sitting in lockdown down. Exactly the same picture. We have the same here. We are a distributed team, and we are in Finland, Belgium, Croatia, the States, and all over. So we are still working like normal, more or less. So we don't really see any big difference there, and we are communicating with our customer like normal as well. So
awesome. So tell me, UNISOT. So this CoinGeek, you presented your seafood chain and a live demonstration of seafood chain. But just run me back to, I guess, in your case, Genesis, where this all started, your experience in supply chains, and then why Bitcoin got you excited to change it.
Yeah, so my background, I've been working 20 years with SAP, the biggest ERP system in the world. And I was working as an integration architect. So I was integrating at the customer where I was visiting. I was integrating their SAP system with other IT systems or SAP systems or Oracle. So that could be to a bank or to a supplier or a customer. And the last 10 years, I got more and more frustrated because I saw that we were doing the same integration over and over and over again. And that kind of integration was very old-fashioned, like file transfers, text files, not even encrypted or anything, and not XML, but just comma-separated text files. We were sending from one folder to another folder with FTP or SFTP to be a little bit more secure. But still, it's in folders where people have access, and it was a text file that people can edit and so on. And that process, just to set up one communication from one company to another to send an order, for example, could take between 3 to 5 weeks. And that worked fine like 20, 30 years ago when a company had one supplier they were working with for 50 years in one way. But that doesn't work anymore today in our moving society. Company have to be more agile. So I was thinking of doing this central database, of course, where every company could connect up to and have their universal source of truth up there. But of course, many companies have tried that. It's a central system. We should have total control of all the information in that system, so it does not work. So, and then I was reading, I think it was Wired magazine first, and someone talked about Bitcoin, and then I found a white paper, and I read Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper. I have it still standing here in my.
Yeah, I know. It's like see it printed there in the corner. Nice.
In the corner there, and I read that white paper, and it just blew my mind that wow, it's not only this Bitcoin and payment stuff, but we have something where we can store information. And that time we couldn't store that much. But anyway, I got this feeling and aha moment that this is my central database that I wanted to do, but it's not central, it's distributed, globally distributed. And of course, at that time it was too early, but I got some vision and some ideas that this is very, very important moment in time. And then a couple of years further on.
So what date was that? Like roughly
2011.
2011.
2011, more or less. Right, yeah, more or less 2011. Then a couple of years later, in 2014, I got a chance to move to Norway. So I'm original from Sweden.
Okay.
Born in Sweden, and then I moved to Belgium for 11 years. Worked there as a freelance SAP consultant, and then I got a chance to move to Norway. And the reason I did that was I now got the opportunity to combine my interest for Bitcoin and blockchain with my profession in SAP. And I saw that here is something that is important, because we have the biggest ERP system in the world, which is a central system in each different company. And we have this problem that companies are not communicating with each other enough. They're not exchanging enough information. And what they're exchanging now is too slow and too inflexible. So I started experimenting by connecting then Bitcoin, and I built my first proof of concept, which was a vending machine where I could pay with my Bitcoin BTC at the time, of course, pay with my Bitcoins to that machine, to a Raspberry Pi with a camera, so I could scan the QR code. And then the machine was waiting and listening to the blockchain, and when it saw the payment in the blockchain, it pushed out a box of sweets. But at the same time, I had the same thing in the SAP system. So when I bought when the machine sold this box of sweet to me, the SAP system created a sales order. So that was how I could prove for myself, and that was very, very important step, and very important in a pedagogic way, because now I could give people Bitcoins on their mobile phone, and then I could tell them, oh, go to that machine and make a purchase.
Yeah.
And then have a look in your SAP system.
Mm-hmm.
You see a sales order. And that really makes people, it's not just, here is a Bitcoin transaction. Okay, so what's that? I can do that with my country's specific apps and so. But now suddenly they understand that you can pay to a machine, and then that is connected to an ERP system. So what we are doing here is that we are connecting these world's biggest ERP systems, centralized, which with then a distributed, permissionless data layer.
Yeah.
And that was just my brain exploded when I understood the potential this had.
So you took to it straight away, and that's quite early as well, like 2011, and to start connecting it in that way was really, really early. So how was, I guess, the stress levels of your first eureka moment and seeing the possibilities from your standpoint and your expertise as to how this could be applied? And then say having, well, we know what happened. The community came in and distorted the image as to what Bitcoin is. So where did your thinking go from there onwards? And where was UNISOT as a project between, I guess, 2011 and pretty much up until, I guess, more clarity started coming on the space when Craig obviously came back onto the space. But what was that void like for you? Were you looking at Ethereum? Were you looking at other projects? I mean, how was that? Yeah,
of course. This worked perfectly fine. I could pay, and I could, in a couple of seconds, the transaction went through. The transaction fee was low and so on. And then suddenly we came into 2016, and the whole system just slowed down and didn't work anymore. So I actually stopped. I gave up. I stopped the whole project and said, this doesn't work. And then I started looking into other blockchains, Ethereum, of course, because that was the big saver, they said at the time. But I had immediately, when I looked at that system, I had this feeling that how in the world is this system supposed to scale? If I write a smart contract and you write a smart contract and 1,000 people writes their own smart contracts, all of these 1,000 smart contracts has to run on every single node in the world.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. It cannot scale whatsoever. So I never really went into Ethereum and start doing something there. So I went further then because I was working with SAP and IBM systems. I actually went to IBM and looked at their Hyperledger blockchain.
Okay.
I went down to France and had a couple of days course at IBM on that, and it just scared me to see how it didn't work.
Yeah, the level of ignorance at such a huge corporation.
Yes,
right?
Yes, really.
I felt like that's what you wanted to say, but I thought I'll save you there and finish your sentence for you.
I still have friends and colleagues in all of these systems, so I'm trying to be a little bit sensitive about that here. But I have my clear view on this, and so I was.
There's a couple of concepts that you touched on there that I'll pick up on a little bit later, but it was just around distributed computing. You've mentioned a couple of times there, and also with that being said, when people really understand the concept of distributed computing and how Bitcoin enables it, then you understand just how absolutely insane Ethereum's approach is.
Yeah.
Right? Like insane Ethereum's approach is. But before we get into that, there's something that I would actually quite like you to enlighten me towards, which is, if you wouldn't mind just explaining the concept behind creating a digital representative of a physical item in the real world. So in your case of fish, I know you've done your example, but really the example that you demonstrated at ConGeek really can be utilized for a variety of different things, like pretty much anything, really.
Yes.
Would you just mind running me through and us through again, just how you make that initial connection between a physical item and a digital item?
Right. So we create what we call the smart digital twins, which is simply just a digital representation in the blockchain. You could see it as a token. It's a kind of token, but not really anyway. And what that digital token or twin is, then it is then representing a physical object. Just like you said, so our UNISOT enterprise blockchain platform is a general blockchain platform for any supply chain. And I realized that we can do so many things. We can track whatever product you think about, if that's medicine or cars or phones or food or you name it, and it can be traced. It's a supply chain. So that's why we decided to make one use case, just to have some focus to work on and to actually get the product out. And because we are in Norway, the second biggest export industry here is seafood. So we decided to make a small test case in seafood, which then resulted in the company seafood chain and the product seafood chain, which is running on top of the enterprise blockchain platform. So what we're doing, you said then the connection between the physical objects and the digital objects. So what we do is that we are creating an ID, just a number, digital ID, and we are connecting that to the physical object. So in case of fish now, if we talk fish farming, an egg is too small to identify itself, and in the industry itself, they identify the batches of eggs.
Okay.
And already today in their system, they already identify each batch with a number. So we just connect that number to our digital twin in a secure way. There are a different way of doing that, but it's all a matter of how we collect that information. We could, as we do now with SAP, for example, we collect that information directly from the SAP system, if they have it in there. We could also connect it from any other IT system, homegrown or specific IT system that they have, or if it's from RFID tags or just barcodes. So whatever technology they're using, we can incorporate that into our system. And there are also coming more and more technologies to make secure barcodes, secure RFIDs, and so on. But that is not really. A lot of people think that is a very, very hard problem to do that connection between the physical object and the digital. But if we are looking at just one physical object and one digital object, that's hard to connect. But when you start to have this in a whole network of events through the whole supply chain, you now start seeing patterns, and you see a chain of events happening. And now if you try to manipulate just one point, one object, one physical object, and try to let's say you have a salmon, or you have a halibut, let's say a halibut, and now you are trying to sell that halibut with one ID, and if you try to use the same ID on another halibut, now suddenly the system will tell you this halibut is already sold. It's has already went through certain steps in the supply chain. It has an origin.
But just for someone who's, say, not familiar with the seafood industry, right, at all. In fact, I've never been a fan of seafood, even from a kid. And now I'm actually like veggie/vegan as well. So I'm definitely not the use case. I don't know much about seafood. But so you're saying that if it's a fish farm, then they have batches that they have on their system, and they know that, okay, if anything comes from this batch, it's logged on our system. But I guess what I'm trying to understand is how would then someone who is aware of a system like yours potentially gamify it? Can it be gamified at source at the beginning until we have, say, a degree of scale, and there's other ways of addressing that? Because it's just that initial handshake is where, and this isn't unique to fish, this is like anything, right?
Anything, yes.
It's just that unique handshake, and it doesn't have to be a case of, all right, I need your answer to be based on what is immediately possible today, but just in terms of like where you see this really being smoothed out and being assigned to everything, how does that initial handshake get more robust and less likely to be gamified?
I would say it's not only the first one, it's every step. Every time we do something with a product, we transport it, or we put a box into a container, or we slice up a fish to different parts, or we take different ingredients into a new product. A bread has different ingredients. So every step is important. That what ingredient is that? What truck did you put your container on? And all of these steps. So what we can do is that the more input we have, so let's say for a location or for a temperature, that is also important information to connect to this digital twin. So let's say a temperature now, that's important in the whole supply chain for food, for example. It has to be below a certain degree during the whole supply chain and transport and so on. By adding more than one temperature sensor or more than one GPS sensor, we can now start checking these two values or three values against each other. And then when we add machine learning onto this, where we can take all the different parameters, like last year with this temperatures, with the wind was blowing that way, all this 1,000 different parameters we can take in, and then we can evaluate, is this temperature true, or how reliable is it? So we can get a reliability value on it. And if we have more than one sensor, we can start matching these values with each other and get a very, very exact measurement. And the more measurement we have, the more steps that we have in this supply chain network, the harder it gets to manipulate just one piece of information somewhere. Because as soon as you introduce a new information that doesn't have history, you see that directly.
Yeah.
And because it's always an online system, so there is a lot of problems today in the retail industry with food, for example. That if you have a product, if they pack meat, for example, they have a best before date. Mm-hmm. And then in the end of the day, they say, "Oh, it went out of date," and they can just go backside in the kitchen, put a new wrapping on it and a new date.
Yeah.
But that's a problem. You cannot do that with this system, because suddenly that date is already registered in the blockchain, and now you have a product that you are selling, and that could be automatically checked in the cashier when you buy it.
Yeah.
You're buying an old product.
Yeah.
Same if a company do recalls or something. If they make a recall and we have this online living system, at the moment when you are scanning it in the cashier, it could check with the blockchain and it said, "Oh, no, that package you have is bad."
Yeah.
And then give you a voucher for another one or better one or something like that.
No, it's such an interesting take, because these are the things that I really like enjoying speaking about and envisioning the most. Things that it's very easy for, say, the mainstream and people out there to understand how this impacts your life, right? Mm-hmm. And we've spoken about this, and I could probably count the amount of times that we've said Bitcoin as you've been explaining that, which is awesome. This is where we need to go. We just need to be focusing on this is how it helps you. This is how we as consumers get fresher, better, and also cheaper products. Yes. This will result into. Now I kind of want to segue this into the second part of where I want to take this conversation, because your work and what you're doing is actually quite closely related to the monetary system, my views on money, money being time, and how we need a better mechanism and way of putting a meter on all of our time, right? Yes. And that goes into everything, as you very well know. You're taking quite a dense part of it, but really this is all about efficiency and time management, right?
Yes.
So with all this crazy stuff that's going on around the world right now, we've got a very dire economic situation globally because of what's going on with global shutdowns and obviously the virus. There's talks of going around this week of the proposed bill by Nancy Pelosi, which very unlikely to get passed. She really tries to snip in a lot of things in there. But one of the things that has been spoken about that was in there prior but has now been removed is the notion of a digital dollar. Right, but it's more the conversation around, okay, how do we as a country now, as a nation, have a system that's got some more transparency and accountability baked into it. Now, I don't think that the way that they've approached it is the right way to be approaching it, definitely right now, but I do think it's interesting that the conversation is there. What I do envision, if we do have a scenario where the world economy has been impacted and confidence has been impacted to a point where we're actually doing something about our fractional reserve system, even having open conversations and open discussions about how to best go about affecting change. I think gold is going to reappear quite aggressively in that conversation. And something that I've always been interested in is, okay, gold as a store of value and something to underpin a national currency under, I still very much advocate, right? I still really, really very much advocate, okay? But then I hear you take the stage and you speaking about what you're speaking on, and what you're speaking on, I'm not hearing, say just the niche way that you've applied it to show a great use case with seafood chain. What I'm hearing you say is you're taking a physical item and you're giving a digital representative on a blockchain. So as you're speaking, I then run that same pattern through gold, and I say, okay, what's going on in the world right now, and how can this type of thinking actually help bring us some real stability from an economic standpoint. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And then the second point where I'd like to segue into is we get a system that allows, say, a more stable measurement and metering of time. And then we take that concept towards distributed computation and, say, API plugins, which I also think is quite closely related to your work. So yeah, what do you think firstly on how we'd go about tokenizing gold or backing gold, get a digital representative of gold? What are the processes behind that, would you envision? And then also, say, distributed computation and why Ethereum, which is such a shit show from your standpoint in trying to do something like that.
Talking about these digital dollar, so I'm from Sweden, and the Swedish National Bank, as well as the Norwegian National Bank, are already discussing, and Sweden are now going to test to make this central bank digital currency. Same like England, they are going the wrong way to do this. At least in Sweden, Norway hasn't taken a decision yet. We hope they will go on the right route. And then going back to tokenized gold, and not only tokenized, but actually also to keep a transparent control of how much gold do we actually have, where is it, who owns it. There is so much gold today, or gold paper today in the world, and there is not gold enough to cover all owners who think they have gold.
This is why I was interested in your views, because
absolutely, that's one of the things we've been thinking a lot about as well, to digitize not only gold but all different kind of raw material. Digitize fish, for example, so we could now I'm back to fish again, but it's all about raw material, not only gold, but any kind of raw material that can have a value and you can trace it. And gold is very important because it is that important base that everything was based on until 71.
And from a public standpoint, there's such a variation on the quantity of gold on the planet, right? So you have a more mainstream accepted quantity is about an Olympic-sized swimming pool worth of gold. But then you have, say, other considerations, like, say, all the gold that got taken out of vaults, tombs, pyramids, all around the world that are off-book gold, which isn't factored in. And then depends how deep you go into your research, the monumental amount of gold held by Asia, right? Which is apparently, I've heard estimations as high as 13 Olympic-sized swimming pools outside, unofficially, of our gold supply, right? Now, I can't sit here and confidently say that it's either one of these things. I have no freaking idea. No idea, no way of validating, no way of checking. Like, I just don't have any idea. So to have, say, the thing that is considered the most stable form of value on the planet, and no well-informed individual on the planet right now can give an accurate depiction, an accurate quantity as to how much gold we have. Most can't even say what we've got in Fort Knox, right? So it's one of those things where we're all quite willingly say, yeah, gold's a great store of value, but then we can't say how much is in existence. Therefore, it's a distorted form of value, right? But
we don't know the value of it actually, because now if there are 13 extra % of gold, what happens to the price then?
So that doesn't say that my argument is against gold. I'm not someone, I definitely see the value of gold. It's way better than it just being not pinned by anything if we have a dollar, right? But I do think that in order for us to not have the continuation of the manipulation, going back to how the Romans handled gold, right? And if we're going to go back to a standard where gold is reintroduced, technologies like what it is that you're working on over at UNISOT, I really would hope to see, say, these types of techniques and these types of technologies now being applied and Bitcoin being utilized really as a way of plugging, not say the way that BTC is doing it, that we are trying to replace gold with a digital equivalent, right? Give gold the support it needs, like plug the holes. Same with the dollar. Give it the support it needs, plug the holes. I definitely see that being, hopefully, a great growth area for people to start experimenting on. The next point I want to get onto, though, is distributed computation. So as you're talking about having digital representation with physical representation, basically you're talking about having data ping and curate systems to trigger different forms of computation, really, whether it be database querying or some other variant of computation. So in terms of like the mechanics of your architecture and what it is that you're doing, you're sending a signal on the blockchain to trigger and communicate with other systems, right? So that's kind of that's distributed computing going on there. But if we talk about where can this go, have you had any ideas around that as to the other possibilities?
Yeah, a lot of ideas, and sometimes it actually scares me on the possibilities that we see and how much different things that we can achieve and build and help. A lot of all the big problems in the world today, we can actually help with this kind of technology. And about distributed computing, the whole blockchain or the miners in the blockchain, the real nodes are the distributed computing. But we also see now that more and more of the mining company will be specializing in different tasks.
Yes.
So, and because the system we have, we must have a very close connection to miners as well. Specifically now, we see in the last month that mining companies are even offering lower fees if you have a direct deal with them. That also means that we can have specific services and we can distribute different tasks to different servers as well around the world.
I really see it as the real power of Bitcoin, which is why the other variants just can never work and will never work, because they killed this functionality and they did not understand that Bitcoin is a computer, right? Yeah. It's a computer.
The whole system is a computer, yes.
It's a computer, and
it's all living organism. So
absolutely, you've got, say, CPU, right? Traditional computing, three major components: CPU, RAM, hard drive, right? And I feel Bitcoin has a representation of these three core components. The hard drive being permanent storage, being blockchain, right? Time chain, but blockchain. And then you have RAM, random access memory, mempool. Yes. Right, which is malleability, and having transaction malleability is a feature, not a bug.
Yes,
right.
Exactly. Yes.
Definitely feature, not a bug. And then computation. Where's the computation in the system? And this is where
you can do smart contracts now. Just look at what S-script is doing. Writing a normal script, and you get it as a smart contract in the blockchain, and that's
absolutely. This is what I mean by human-to-human interactions, human-to-machine interactions, and machine-to-machine interactions. And the spin from that is us. We are the processor. We are the computation. We're the ones who are building these systems, whether it be automated or not. We are instructing these systems to communicate a certain way. Consciousness is the processor of the network. And
there was one thing you didn't mention here. It's like a computer. It's like a storage and memory and everything. But we have one more parameter to this. That is the payments. We can monetize things. We can monetize time. We can monetize information, which is a huge step in this whole system. And also for the way we are working then with supply chain is that you can now, company can start monetize their information that they already have and start selling and buying information in small parts with micropayments.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. However, I also say that us looking at transactions, and even the word transaction, when we say transaction, we traditionally think in a monetary sense, right? And it forces us to think in a monetary sense. Also, the groupings of these transactions and then branding them blocks then makes us consider these in 10-minute windows and not the milliseconds in between the interactions within the 10-minute windows. So then it has created a narrative of 10 years that Bitcoin is a finance, monetary-based system, and it's just that. It's a replacement to the fiat banking system. The transactions, yes, have monetary attributes, and they are monetary, but it's data, and that data can represent anything. And I think the use case that most excites me is, oh crap, like this means that this can represent any form or trigger any form of computation. This renders Moore's law redundant, right? When people really, really understand what this does, it renders Moore's law redundant, because Moore's law takes, say, all the computation that you have, even though this house is empty right now because I've moved out, but I've still got a laptop, I've got a Fire Stick, and I've got a tablet, and I've still got a smart TV upstairs, right? Now, these are all great devices, but they're isolated in terms of computation, and they're limited by Moore's law. So Moore's law condensing, say, the amount of the die size, the amount of transistors you're fitting in the density of space, but the electron's still going at the same speed. So we're reducing the size, but the electron's still doing its thing, and that's how we're getting an increased form of computation.
Yes.
Well, Bitcoin is order. It's the ledger of the planet that brings order. It could bring order to all forms of computation and pool it. But more interestingly is I can be, say, a specialized provider, which we have today. You've got AWS storage, etc. You've got quantum computing that you can hire by the hour, D-Wave, $2,000 per hour. You can hire quantum computing. But none of our payment systems are geared around understanding that money is time, and that the new technologies that are being applied to financial systems are allowing people to get a much more accurate rate on time. So I don't want to pay $2,000 an hour and be bound by some big ass contract, right? What about if I just want to run a quantum operation for 5 seconds?
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
That's exactly what you now have, a computer, and you have payments, so you can do this micropayment, like I said, for information, but also for processing.
Yeah.
Let's say you pay per processing cycle or per second or whatever you are paying for. So now your smart TV, when you're not using it now, you could actually be paying that for processing some information, or actually making the TV could make money on renting out its processor and so on. So it gives us enormous possibilities in this distributed computing world.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think the next 5 years are going to catch quite a few people off guard in terms of the leap that we're going to have in accessible computation because of what we're talking about here. Yes. You have all the resources on the planet, in theory, being able to be united as one huge body of available computation. And Bitcoin is the order, the ledger that allows that transaction to wrap around wherever these systems are that are connected to the network, to just whip around the network and trigger all of these systems. And this is why my argument is we have to stop calling it a blockchain. We have to look at it as a time chain, because the interactions and the sequence of triggering respective forms of computation, I need to have it come back to me in a order that makes sense. Right. So looking at the milliseconds, the picosecond is important. Right. And I think us just looking at it as money and as a financial transaction system and layer really does, I think, take the sting and takes a lot of the venom out of even your model and what it is that you guys are doing, because people assume that we need some weird Bitcoin implementation on things, but AWS already exists, D-Wave already exists, all of these systems already exist. They just need, say, a way of communicating, and this is a payment processor really, that allows them to break down their stuff and be queried and earn what they want, which is dollars or GBP or euro.
Right, yeah.
That's why I've always found what it is that you're doing, Stephan, very, very much like on the money, and really, really, really interesting. I know you made a joke that people call you Aquaman, and like the seafood guy. Definitely should not be looking at it like that.
It's a good marketing, and it's a good way of people to recognize, oh, there was that guy. And just to go back to what you talked about, calling it blockchains. I totally agree with you. This is a time chain, but in the world where we are operating at the moment, and I say at the moment with brackets, is that we are working in an enterprise world, and we are selling our system to enterprises, which has been educated by IBM, SAP, Ernst & Young, and all of these companies. That the name is blockchain. That's something distributed. It's very good to use. So we have to talk the same language for now. But of course, when we go down and we discuss the details, we will have to mention Bitcoin, and that's a big no-no still. And we have to start educating them in this holistic view of what this system actually is and what it can do, and more or less forget the old names. But for us just to have a market, get into the market and get the attention from CEOs and CTOs and so on, we have to call it blockchain, of course.
No, I agreed. So what's the next stages for you guys? What does the rest of the year of 2020 hold? On the basis that we're not all abducted by aliens next week, because that seems to be the theme of 2020. But all going well, what's the next?
Yeah, 2020 has been a very interesting year so far, both globally and in the company. So like, we got funded last summer. We were 4 people creating the company, and then we have now grown to 18 people totally in a couple of companies, so UNISOT and Seafood Chain and some other companies. We were working, or the whole team were working like maniacs for these 9 months just to get our system up and running for CoinGeek. That was our only goal that we had. So it was more like a guerrilla developing, just get it up and running and build the base that we can continue building on. So now, just after CoinGeek, we actually took a couple of weeks off just to calm down and to collect our thoughts again. And now we are back, and now it's time to actually scale the company to be able to handle this system that we created. So to scale the organization, to get up all the routines and things that you need to have a working enterprise, a working company. Getting away from this almost hackathon mentality that we had, and now we have to do it in sprints and in a more organized way. We did it in sprint before as well, but it was really, really quick. So that's what we're doing now, and we already have a number of customers that we are going to implement our system at. So we have that set out. The rest of the year is planned out totally. Every quarter is full, and every month is full, more or less. So we are super happy for that, and we are looking for more people to come into our company and help us both to develop. We need more developers, so Bitcoin developers, JavaScript developers, and front end for React Native and so on. But also like project leaders, business analysts, and so on. So to build up the structure of the company. But we are looking ahead at a very, very interesting year, both in the company and with the world that we have now. Let's see. Let's hope that it doesn't continues too long.
Yeah. No, agreed. Well, everyone at Bitstocks, we're definitely rooting for you. Is there anything that, just to round up really, is there anything that you would like to see from the Bitcoin SV community this year, or anything that you would like to share and a message you'd like to leave with the SV community?
I would like to thank the whole SV community. The whole Bitcoin SV community is fantastic. All the support we get, all the good comments, and people coming and want to work for us. That's phenomenal. I'm so happy comparing to how the old BTC community was and how Bitcoin SV is. It's very open. Everybody, you can talk to anybody. Like on CoinGeek, you can just go to anybody and talk to them. If they are a CEO or if they are just a hacker or an investor or whatever it is, that is perfect. And there is no one that's tried to sell you an ICO token or some bogus things in the system here. Everybody is focused in doing actual applications that are used for something, and all these more than 400 different projects that has just exploded in the community is wonderful. And we are open for a collaboration with all of them. So we are talking to more or less everybody in the space as well, and are open to collaborate and see how we together can build and get the momentum even better with company externally start using Bitcoin SV. So
awesome. And final question. So next 5 years, what would you like to see as a result of a Bitcoin world? And I'll tell you what, I'm not going to pinpoint it down to UNISOT. So I'll say a Bitcoin world, and as a result of what you guys are doing as well, what humanity looks like in that vision over the next 5 years. What would you like to see?
If you have asked me this like 2 months ago, before the crisis, I would give a complete different answer. But at the moment, with this, I shouldn't say crisis, in the situation that we are at the moment with our financial system, that we know have been in its final days for many years, I look very, very positive to the future, because big things are happening to our economy and our current economic system at the moment. And when in a couple of weeks, month, or maybe a year, I think we will see a complete different economical system. And we are already here just waiting with the Bitcoin system to use that, to utilize that. So the old system is dying, and we are just standing here waiting with a new system. It's already up and running for 11 years, been proven secure and working. And we can solve so many problems that the world have today in the financial system, in social system, in all systems. We can solve with Bitcoin. And that mind just blows my mind of thinking about that. So I'm very, very positive for the coming 5 years.
Yeah, we literally have the power in our hands, like now, right?
We do, and it's scary, but we have to be careful and do it in the right way, and fight off bad people. But I think we have that filters already with BCH and BTC. So we have filtered away a lot of the problems, and now when we lock down the protocol, that is exactly what needs to be done. Lock it down so nobody will change. We won't have any discussions anymore. Now we can just start building on that system.
Couldn't agree more. Well, guys, this is Stephan Nilsson of UNISOT, founder and CEO. Definitely someone that we all need to be supporting and keeping an eye on for their developments. Stephan, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know we've tried to make this happen before. I'd love to have you back on again, hopefully when we're both in slightly more professional settings, I guess. But I hope you and your beautiful family are safe and are well prepared, and you've got all your supplies, etc., that you need. And I hope that goes to your whole company family as well, and that everyone in your circle, personally and business-wise, comes out of this crazy time a lot stronger, better, and healthier. So without any further ado, Stephan, thank you so much. Very much appreciate you coming on. And yeah, keep on plowing forward, and we'll be there too, doing exactly the same. So true fashion as always. It's another podcast, and we'll try and do as many of these as possible as we can. And yeah, in true fashion as always, until next time, peace, love, and light, guys. All the best.